This is the new Lapsang Souchong that I have for the shop. 2021 from Tongmuguan, the origin of this tea. I had this earlier today. I just picked it up in the mail this morning, but I had a pot earlier, brewed like a little bit stronger than I normally do my standard. And I haven't done any paperwork for this tea yet. This video is kind of my first look at it. Really, with a deep focus on the flavor and stuff. But using 5 grams for 330 milliliters, I still felt it could be stronger. So this one is done 6.6 grams and for 3 minutes instead of 2 for the steep. And I expect it's going to be pretty good. Probably I also expect I would still be able to take it further than this. Maybe doing something like 8 grams, but we'll see. Smokiness is great. It's freaking cold outside. It's probably like -10. My fingers are numb. But it's like just the right amount of smoke. Doesn't come off as burned. It comes off as kind of malty smoke. Something animalistic about it. Like an old barn, not like that has any hay in it or anything. It's like dusty. Like a burned down place where animals once were. Something like that. If there's such a fragrance. So nice on the hands. So we have sort of your typical orange color that you see in tea. Maybe like comparable to a very light whiskey. So you have a really good balance between the fragrance of smoke and the fragrance of tea. It's a lot less smoky than I would have expected putting in so much tea leaf. Yeah, it's like a really it's a black tea's fragrance though. Yeah, hard to say. It's like it's a really delicate smell. Delicate malty. It's got the smell of kind of like a golden needles tea in the malty, yeah, delicate sort of way. And then the smoke plays in, but very subtly, actually. Surprisingly still so much less smoke flavor than I thought. Steeping for 3 minutes, I thought I'd be able to get more of like a rich texture and body. Didn't really happen. It's really warm though. It reminds me of sitting in front of a fireplace. one of my favorite pairings that I do with this tea and is like with cinnamon buns. The roasted note and the cinnamon notes of cinnamon buns, like the baked and cinnamon notes together, they are beautifully in harmony with this kind of tea. And then just smelling this, that's super obvious to me that they'd be great together. Yeah, I would say like smoke plays maybe 30% of the importance of the flavor in here. It's present, but there's much more depth to the tea flavor than the smoke. And I suspect, as a matter of fact, that might be because it's steeped too long, that if you want more of the intensity of the smoke, it would make sense that you steep it less time, because if you do that, then the tea flavor won't have as long to come out into the water. You'll just get the surface notes, which are going to be coming from the smoke. So maybe that is where things are weird, because I felt like my 2-minute steep earlier was smokier than this. Yeah, there's a spiciness that comes along with the smoke. I think it's very apt to compare to cinnamon. And the weight is good, but I still think it should be even a little bit stronger than this. So I think I will try this is 1 to 60, I think. So maybe 1 to, or maybe this is 1 to 50. Well, 6.6. I won't do the math right now. But I'll try, if this is 1 to 50, I'll try 1 to 40. If this is 1 to 60, I'll try 1 to 50. 2 minutes though, and I'll just pause this and bring it back. I decided to go stronger. I think this is 1 to 30 or so. This is how I brew my green tea these days, about the strength. So this is 9.6 grams of tea, up from 6.6 with 330 milliliters of water. Just for a comparison of the color, I'll just put this one back here. I'll bring it up in a sec. So this is 2 minutes to steep. Color doesn't really look too different. It looks thicker though. Looks like there's more going on. So yeah. So it's still on the subtle side of the smoke, but it is definitely smokier than this. Really warm and inviting sort of smokiness. Like if you went into someone's house and they have a fireplace going, that's the kind of smell, the kind of smokiness that you get. Maybe not the house, maybe not the house, maybe more like when you're in front of the fireplace and the wood is there. But it's like spicy smoke. Sweet, spicy smoke. Sweet like... sweet like candied spicy peppers. Candied red peppers. The sweet peppers. There's like these little, I think they're called teardrop peppers. Can get them in a cheese shop close to where I work. It's like a combination of cinnamon buns, the teardrop peppers, kind of like, my mind keeps going back to Indian tea, like Assamese black tea, in terms of its malty earthiness. And see, I don't get as much of like the barn aspect like I got from the last one. This one is less to do with that kind of old wood fragrance because the sweetness stands out more. Sweetness stands out more in this too. Flavor is in a good spot. You get the lingering spice notes. They're still sticking around, even right now. But I would say, still, there's not enough body. Not, it's like the potency rather. Could do for less water than this. Then has to be stronger. And you know, when you do that, when you start playing around with the water, well, for me, because I like to offer this as a pot size, then things start to get tricky because then now you have to have a different measurement for water, or you have to add more tea. And if you add more tea, like already 9.6 grams, almost 10 grams of tea is an expensive pot. So then you have to have a different water measurement, which is not rocket science, like easy to do that. But then you have to sort of, I don't know, justify that. Because you're giving someone not really a shareable pot of tea anymore. Like this is almost, we're very close to where we need to be. I would try 1 to 20 then. Same steeping time. I feel like this would also benefit from clay. So I will try the next version in the clay. Feels good in the chest though. Really warm. So what I need right now. One very positive thing I should say, you know, because I think I sound to myself rather negative so far about this tea. You know, I'm saying like, oh, it's not potent enough, oh, it's not really that smoky, oh, this and that. There is a fine line that you have to balance on with this type of tea. That other countries, they, except maybe Japan, that they really just fail at when they try to make this, which is having smoky aroma without ashy taste. That's hard to do. Like when these teas taste ashy, they don't taste like they're healthy. This doesn't come off as unhealthy whatsoever. The smoke is a really hard thing to balance, I think, with this type of tea. Yeah, so close. So let's move on. Well, let's compare. Now that these are colder and about the same. Yeah, the color is pretty much the same, no? I don't really see a big difference here. In fact, this one even seems to be a little bit lighter in color, despite more tea. So the color comes from time, in this case. And lastly, I feel like the texture would probably be better than both of these if it was in the middle. So I'll do a stronger tea in clay with maybe 2 minutes and 30 seconds as a steep. Okay, I'll pause that for now. So, sort of what I meant by not seeming like there's enough value. So to get the ratio that I need to use 5 grams of tea. So on it, that is me not thinking. Get this on a scale. So 5 grams of tea is, you know, pretty average size pot for me. If I'm going to use 300 milliliters of water, but I'm only going to get 100 milliliters of tea out of this. And then, of course, there's the re-steeping aspect of it, and it also takes up a valuable piece of teaware, which surely is not a big deal for, you know, a wealthy sort of tea restaurant or shop or whatever. But I only have limited amounts of that stuff. And so, you know, only one person can have this experience at a time. That might be a deal breaker for some people. Maybe you can actually split this in 2 cups, but still. 5 grams, and then 100 mil. Start. So I'd be surprised if this one doesn't just come out the best, frankly. You think I know what I'm doing by now. So for those of you who, I don't know, have never thought about this side of it before, what teaware will do for the tea. It can ruin tea, for sure, when you use clay. It depends on the type, I would say. So, you know, even if there's no tea involved, you just pour hot water into this, you're going to get, if it sits for a little bit at least, you're going to get kind of a clay aroma in the tea, in your water, pardon me. And now you imagine you've added an element to this. There can be like really nuanced teas that have like something just barely detectable when you use glass or porcelain. And when you have that very barely detectable compound now fighting for the spotlight with the clay that you put in from your teaware, you might lose it. So there's that. It also serves to bring out more of the earthiness in the tea. So if you have a tea that's already earthy, it should be earthier, because those compounds will kind of clump together, you could say. I should pour this here. That's 2 minutes. So, not that I found this tea was like super earthy, but there is a little bit of that element to it. So, we'll see what happens. Mostly, this is a way to get the extra power. Sweet, smoky. I am getting this sense in my teeth almost. It's sort of like anticipation for there to be lots of tannin and mouthfeel, and so that's usually when you're adding, like when black tea does that to you. Let's say like English black tea, English style black tea. That's normally when you're going to be adding milk and stuff. Not that you'd want to add milk to this, I don't think. Smoke is the dominant aroma now, which is what I wanted. It's like the aroma is quite golden and powdery. Like there was a TV show called Food Wars, Japanese anime, Shokugeki no Soma, in Japanese, and there's like this spice master guy who shows up, and like the fragrance of his spice blends float in the air as this beautiful golden powder. I would say that this smells like that. There's a really beautiful, if I could say this smells gold. We'll see. Yeah. That is on the money, what I want. The only thing I will say is that it lost too much heat. But that's a small thing. That's a small thing. I can fix that. Yeah, like the potency is very, very good right here. It could even be a little bit less than this. It's a fine line. I would argue that currently it's a little bit too aggressive. The flavor is super tight and comes to you in this little burst. It's not astringent though. If anything, it comes off as a little bit sour. And the sourness quickly fades away, and then you get into this sort of, yeah, sour, smoky finish. Acidic. Honestly, gets to kind of like the coffee level of acidity. I know my wife wouldn't like this. That acidity would just, she refused to drink it. She doesn't like this sort of bright coffee. It's very bright. It's got a funky nose to it. Kind of like, reminds me of awamori, Japanese alcohol from Okinawa, kind of. But that's probably that's a clay thing. Awamori smells like clay. We'll try round 2 just to see how it goes, and then we'll say lastly, these are obviously the way that I'm brewing it. And the way that it's been recommended to brew this is actually very, very different. They would say you should do this more like gong fu cha, in a way like 15-second steep times, and brew it like 8 times. I suspect in doing that, we're going to observe the same sort of things that I've commented on in this. You're going to get more of an upfront smokiness. It's going to be really smoky for the first few pots. And as you go in, it's going to be more just like a spicy black tea with these kind of notes hiding in the background somewhere. Which is not a bad thing. I would say initially I was hoping that this would be more of a red colored tea. That's not really a super tangible thing to follow, but some of the Lapsang I've had in the past has been like super deep red. Not the color of the tea, it's like the flavor color. This one is more golden yellow, deep yellow. This really powerful pot was getting to be kind of orange. It's just that the tea's potency is not quite, the tea's flavor potency is not quite there. Not quite what I was hoping it was going to be. Not to say that maybe I was hoping for even like a lower quality version. Maybe that's just what I'm used to, I guess I would say. Didn't even start a timer on this, so let's just go. Second pot's okay. I would want to try to get this in a large amount of that first flavor, a little bit toned down as a first pot. Then it's like a one pot wonder. Those are the most practical for like restaurant service, when you get like one great pot, because then you don't have to spend so much time with the customer. There's a more of a wow factor, and I mean, in our culture, typically we have like a pairing to work with. People will have tea with dessert, for example. And if you can make that one 15-minute window of their time, or 10-minute window when they have dessert and tea, or just tea before they leave, for example, if you can make that really count, I think there's a lot more of a wow factor. And there is definitely a wow factor when they stick around for an hour drinking tea as well, and there's multiple pots. It's just different. I think less people have, unless they're already tea drinkers, they don't necessarily initially want to commit that amount of time to sitting around and just drinking tea. Yeah, the second round here is like, it's black tea with, it's really warming for the, yeah, the finish is really warming. My mouth is still, that golden fragrance is kind of coating the whole thing. But it's a little bit watery now. So, something to think about anyway. Eventually, when I do my my sheet, I'll have it, and we can maybe compare my notes then. But I realize this is already 26 minutes and probably too long, so I'll cut it short here. Thank you for watching. So, as I was driving to pick up my daughter from school, I had this maybe genius thought, maybe it doesn't work. That high acidity that you get from the tea, maybe you can nullify that with alkaline water. So that'll be one of my things to try. And then I would say teas that are dull tasting maybe will benefit from high acidity water. So definitely this is on my things to do list. I have these waters available to me, so I will let you know. But that can be one way if I can't figure out otherwise how to get the same potency without that kind of sour note, then must be the water. But that's it.